Management Information Session Part 2. Vacation. Vacation at the club starts at 2 weeks per year. After successful completion of 5 years of continuous employment, vacation increases to 3 weeks. After 10 years, vacation goes up to 4 weeks per year. Manager's responsibilities. Advance vacation. An employee may take advance vacation with the written approval of the department head. Vacation carryover. Every employee is allowed to carry over and use their vacation time within the first 2 weeks of the next employment year, until March 15th for the F&B staff. The department head or general manager and HR director may grant an extension of vacation. Any accrued but unused vacation time that exceeds the minimum vacation entitlement as outlined in the Employment Standards Act will be lost. Scheduling approving vacation time. Every manager must plan their employees' vacation time well in advance to ensure all vacation days are taken before the end of the year, as unused days will be lost. Employees should request vacation time through our HRIS system, and managers must approve these requests. It is the manager's responsibility to ensure that employees properly request their time off through our online HRIS system in a timely manner. The vacation calendar for every employee at the club starts on January 1st and ends on December 31st. If an employee starts working at the club during the year, their vacation will be prorated until December 31. Here at the club, we celebrate and recognize the following holidays: New Year's Day, Family Day, Good Friday, Victoria Day, Civic Holiday, Canada Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, Boxing Day. Hourly employees working on any of these holidays other than Civic Holiday will be paid their regular pay plus premium pay for every hour worked. In this case, they will not be given a substitute day off. Salary employees working on any of these holidays will receive lieu time off for every hour worked. Performance management. We start with an initial conversation where we ask about any relevant issues that might be affecting performance. If needed, we follow the disability accommodation process and address any necessary accommodations before moving forward. Next, we focus on coaching and mentoring. This involves setting clear expectations, providing training and resources, removing barriers, and offering continuous feedback to support the employee's growth. If improvement is still needed, we move to a performance improvement plan. In this step, we identify the issue and its causes, explain the impact on the team and the club, set SMART goals, and schedule follow-up meetings. We also outline the steps and potential consequences if progress isn't made. If these steps do not resolve the issue, we proceed with more formal actions, beginning with counseling or a verbal warning, followed by a written warning, and then a second written warning if necessary. Further action could include a suspension, with or without pay, depending on the situation. Finally, if no improvement occurs, termination may be the last step. This process ensures a fair and structured approach to addressing performance issues while supporting the employee's opportunity for growth and development. Career development process. Ensuring thorough preparation and clear communication, our career development process is designed to enhance employee development and align individual goals with organizational objectives. Here's a streamlined outline to guide you through each step. Career development process: advance notice. Inform team 1 month ahead. Reminders: send to managers and employees. Self-evaluations: distribute forms 2 weeks prior. Training session: schedule for all employees. Team meeting: explain process and timeline. Preparation: review achievements, improvements, and goals. Collect and submit self-evaluation forms and goals. Senior managers and GM finalize goals. Evaluation: conduct interviews, review self-evaluations, duties, achievements, and goals. Submit wage adjustments, bonuses for approval. Complete and submit evaluation forms to HR. Communicate bonuses, increases to employees.
Welcome to Working Together, training on the Ontario Human Rights Code and the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. We'll show you how the code applies to people with disabilities and about your organization's duty to accommodate. We'll call the Ontario Human Rights Code the Code, the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, the AODA, and the Integrated Accessibility Standards Regulation, the IASR. They're all laws you must follow. This module describes your organization's rights and responsibilities under the Code and the AODA standards, as well as how they work together. The IASR under the AODA requires training about the code and how it helps people with disabilities. This module provides that training. The code has primacy. This means that Ontario laws, with a few exceptions, have to follow the code. Its goal is to provide for equal rights so as to create a climate of respect where everyone feels part of the community and can contribute fully. The code says people with disabilities must be free from discrimination where they work, live, and receive services, and their needs must be accommodated. The goal of the AODA is for Ontario to be accessible by 2025 by removing and preventing barriers so that people with disabilities can participate more fully in communities.
Customer Service Policy, AODA. At our club, we believe in providing equal value and quality of service to all individuals, regardless of their abilities. Our commitment to inclusivity means ensuring that job duties are performed at each person's own pace, allowing everyone to contribute effectively and comfortably. We recognize that alternative methods may be necessary to support our workers. By adapting tasks and environments to meet the unique needs of our employees, we create a more inclusive and productive workplace. Similarly, we strive to ensure that our customers can access our services at their own pace, promoting a welcoming and accessible environment for all. Safety is a paramount consideration in all our operations. We are dedicated to implementing alternative methods for providing services that prioritize the well-being of everyone involved. This includes individual needs consideration, ensuring that each person's specific requirements are met with care and attention. Effective communication is key to our approach. We are committed to fostering disability-aware communication, ensuring that all interactions are respectful and accommodating. By embracing these principles, we aim to create an inclusive atmosphere where everyone feels valued and supported. When an employee mentions a health issue, it should be taken seriously and promptly redirected to the HR office for further action. We require medical confirmation of any disability and its limitations to ensure appropriate accommodations are made. A written accommodation plan is then developed in collaboration with the employee and their supervisor, and both parties sign off on it. For those employees who have been absent due to disability, we create a return-to-work process to facilitate their smooth reintegration into the workplace. The agreed-upon accommodation plan is followed diligently, with HR or supervisors requesting periodic medical updates if necessary. We are committed to providing necessary accommodations up to the point of undue hardship, ensuring that all employees can perform their duties effectively. Lastly, performance standards and performance management are applied equally to all employees, ensuring fairness and consistency across the organization. Club benefits. The club also offers a large variety of great benefits and perks. Please contact your HR department for more details. Below is a summary of various club benefits and perks offered by the club. Take a moment and pause this video to review all our amazing benefits. Pay and overtime. Pay period. You will be paid by direct deposit every other Friday. Accounting department processes and submits payroll every other Tuesday. Sign in and out. Hourly employees must sign in when they are in uniform, and it is time for their shift to start. They must sign out at the end of their shift before changing into street clothes. Employees should not sign in more than 10 minutes before the start of their shift. Overtime. Overtime is paid if you work more than 44 hours in a week. Overtime must be pre-approved by your supervisor. Leave time. Managers and supervisors are not entitled to overtime pay. However, they may take time off in lieu of pay with approval of their direct manager or general manager. Employees may take time off in lieu of pay for extra hours worked at a mutually agreed upon time by you and your supervisor. Unused lieu time cannot be carried over to the next year. Leaves of absence. Advance notice. If you are unable to report to work due to injury or illness, you are expected to notify your immediate supervisor 8 hours before your normal reporting time. This provides the supervisor time to try to find a replacement. Request and approval. To maintain continuity of service, leave of absence pay and benefits, any leave of absence must be applied for through our online HRIS system. This will then be forwarded to your manager for approval and the accounting department for payment and record keeping. The club offers a variety of paid and unpaid leaves of absence. In this session, we will cover the most commonly used types of leave. If your or your employee's situation does not fit any of the reviewed leaves of absence, please contact the HR department for assistance in finding the appropriate leave option for your needs. Pause this video to review our policies on bereavement and unpaid leaves of absence. Other policies. Name tags. Name tags are to be worn at all times while on duty. They are to be worn on your left torso. Smoking. For the comfort and health of others, you are not to smoke in any area of the club or surrounding property. Mandatory meetings and trainings. Every employee is required to attend and/or complete all TLTC meetings and mandatory training sessions. Late for work. If unusual circumstances cause you to be late, please call your supervisor so that someone can cover your shift until you arrive. Perpetual lateness or unexcused or persistent early departure during scheduled working hours is cause for discipline up to and including dismissal. Use of personal phone, email, and internet. The Toronto Lawn Tennis Club respects the individual privacy of its employees. However, employee privacy does not extend to the employee's work-related conduct or the use of company-provided equipment and supplies. All email messages are club records. The contents of email messages or communications properly obtained for legitimate business purposes may be disclosed within the company without your permission. Use of social media during work hours. Use of an internet or email connection, including communication through social networking sites such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, for the use of watching videos, etc., for any purpose that is not specifically related to the TLTC's business, is prohibited during working hours. Personal cell phones. Cell phones should be off or in silent vibrate mode during work hours unless used for work-related purposes or on break. Usage is prohibited while operating vehicles or equipment. Social media during work hours. Non-work-related social media use is prohibited during working hours. Social media outside of work hours. Staff are expected to maintain the positive image of TLTC at all times. Do not share confidential information or post inflammatory, negative, or inappropriate content which could result in disciplinary action. Forbidden content. Club systems must not be used to share insulting, offensive, or inappropriate material, including sexually explicit content, racial or ethnic slurs, or harassing messages. Misuse may lead to disciplinary action. Reputation of the club. Employees must not engage in any conduct that damages the club's reputation, both during and after employment. Property removal policy. No club property, including equipment or waste, may be removed without written approval from a manager. Unauthorized removal will result in disciplinary action. Press release and social media policy. No employee is authorized to release information to the media. All media inquiries must be directed to the general manager. Fragrance control policy. Excessive use of perfumes, colognes, and other fragrances is not permitted. Any complaints will be addressed by HR or the general manager. Company events, drinking and driving. As a benefit to employees and as a means to engage its workforce, encourage team building, and maintain employee morale, the club will hold company-sponsored events. The following rules are applicable to all employees in attendance at such events. Drinking and driving. Under no circumstances should any TLTC employee drink and drive. We ask that you plan ahead and have a designated driver or use a taxi to get home safely. Alcohol intake. At such events, the club will take reasonable steps to regulate activities and requests that all TLTC employees avoid drinking excessive amounts of alcohol. In the event that a TLTC representative or other authority determines that an employee is intoxicated and/or may not be in legal state to operate a vehicle, they may request that an employee stop consuming more alcohol and surrender their car keys. Conduct. While present at company-sponsored events, all employees are expected to conduct themselves in a manner that reflects well on the organization. In the event that an employee is engaged in a serious breach of conduct while at the TLTC-sponsored events, disciplinary actions may follow. Additional activities. When TLTC employees leave the club-sponsored events, their actions after their departure become their own responsibility. Substance abuse. TLTC has established a zero-tolerance policy against intoxication or impairment in the workplace. Our goal is to maintain a work environment that is free from the effects of substance abuse. The use, possession, sale, or distribution of narcotics, illegal drugs, firearms, explosives, and other improper materials or controlled substances while on the job or during the workday is a chargeable offense. Any illegal substances will be turned over to the appropriate law enforcement agency and may result in criminal prosecution. Off-the-job drug use, including recreational marijuana, which could adversely affect an employee's job performance, or which could jeopardize the safety of others, may result in disciplinary actions up to and including dismissal. Every manager should report any employee substance abuse to the HR office immediately. Any disciplinary measures related to employee substance abuse should be first confirmed with HR department, as substance abuse can be considered a disability or could be related to a prescribed medication. Employees who are undergoing or planning to undergo prescribed medical treatment, including taking such medication during their working day, should always follow the below procedure. Report such treatment to your supervisor or HR manager as soon as possible in advance of taking this medication or substance. When off duty, refuse a request to come into work if unfit for duty. Provide any required medical documentation in support of use of controlled substances as part of a prescribed medical treatment program. Report limitations and required modifications as a result of medication or substance use that can lead to physical or mental impairment. Follow TLTC accommodation policy as outlined in the AODA policy. Report unfit coworkers to management. Communicate dependency or emerging dependency to your supervisor or HR manager. As a manager, you are responsible for no handbooks. Familiarize yourself with the TLTC, HR, and H&S employee handbooks. Report concerns. Identify and report to HR any situations that may affect an employee's ability to safely perform their job functions. Support accommodation. Ensure that any employee requesting accommodation due to a drug or alcohol dependency or use of controlled substances as part of a prescribed medical treatment program receives appropriate support. Manage performance. Ensure performance management procedures are followed and inform the HR department in a timely manner. Consult on discipline. Apply disciplinary measures with prior consultation with the HR department. Maintain confidentiality. Uphold confidentiality and employee privacy at all times. Facility use. Employees are not allowed to use the club facilities. It is not only a matter of inconveniencing the members and guests, but it also interferes with the impression that the club is dedicated to the comfort and enjoyment of its members. In this section, we will cover TLTC health and safety policies, heat stress, alcohol policy, emergency response plan, anti-harassment policy, worker H&S rights, managers H&S responsibilities, worker H&S responsibilities, right to refuse unsafe work, right to disconnect, managers responsibilities.
Alright, so let's talk about some heat-related emergencies and heat illness. There are 3 different types of heat-related emergencies that we're going to discuss today. We have heat cramps, we have heat exhaustion, and then we have heat stroke on the far end of the spectrum. So let's start out simple. When we are out working in the heat, one, we all know this, but here's a quick reminder. We should be drinking a lot of water, staying hydrated, because we are sweating and losing water quickly. So we need to make sure we stay hydrated. We want to make sure that we are keeping electrolytes in our system. And I'm not talking about downing a bunch of sugary Gatorade. A lot of people say if you are using Gatorade, you really should be diluting that down. Gatorade has a ton of sugar in it. So while that can be good on some fronts, you don't want to be just constantly putting a ton of sugar in your system while you're just trying to get those electrolytes. There's a couple other sports drinks out there that will help rehydrate you quickly, like Liquid IV and Drip Drop. Those are both ones that are put out there for athletes and first responders. You can add that to water. It gives you the electrolytes, but doesn't have near the sugar in it. But you should be hydrating with water, but you also need to make sure you're getting electrolytes as well. Prevention is the best treatment for an illness. If we can prevent that in the first place, we never have to deal with that. So let's make sure that we are monitoring our heat levels, monitoring our intake of fluids, and make sure that we're staying aware of these signs and symptoms before they actually become a big deal. All right, so let's move into heat cramps. So heat cramps are muscle cramps that you will get from dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. Anytime that we sweat or we pee off extra water that we've been drinking, sodium moves with that water always. Other electrolytes move with that as well, but particularly sodium. That's why you'll get salt stains on your shirt when you're sweating a lot. So we can have low sodium in our body if we are losing a lot of fluid. That's why we have to make sure we have some electrolytes that we are replacing in our body rather than just plain water over and over and over again. So to prevent heat cramps, we want to make sure we're drinking lots of water and we have some type of electrolyte going in our system. If you do have heat cramps, start hydrating. You also want to start working. You can massage those muscles, massage those cramps, stretch those to try to relieve any of the spasms and try to provide a little bit of relief from those cramps. But ultimately, rehydrating and adding some electrolytes back into your system are going to be one of the keys there to help relieve that cramp and also prevent any future ones while you're continuing to work. All right, as we progress to the next level, we're now talking about heat exhaustion. So heat exhaustion, we've been outside working in the heat. We are getting hot. Our core temperature is starting to rise a bit. We're continuing to get dehydrated. So again, make sure you're staying on top of those fluids. Make sure you're staying on top of those electrolytes. And monitor how your body reacts to the environment. If you start getting too hot, or someone else you realize around you is getting too hot, make sure that you're cooling down and that you're allowing your body to get rid of that heat. The Creator designed our bodies to be able to adapt to environments around us fairly well. So when we're out in the heat, if we're used to sitting in the AC all day, our body's not going to like that heat. If we're used to working in the heat, our body is much more readily able to adapt to that heat, and we don't have near as many issues from that heat. So understand your body, understand how these signs and symptoms are showing up on you or people around you, and as always, get out of the heat for a little while, sit in the shade, get in the AC for a little while if you are not adapting well to that environment you're working in. Normal signs and symptoms for heat exhaustion would be dizziness, a little bit of lethargy, kind of tired, drowsy, feel like they might pass out. It's not a heat stroke yet, but we do have the body trying to compensate rapidly for this heat, trying to get rid of this heat, but it can't get rid of the heat at the level that is actually holding on to the heat. So we want to make sure that we cool these patients down before this does become the next level, which is a heat stroke. As we are trying to cool these patients with heat exhaustion, a good rule of thumb is to try to cool where the large arteries run. So we could put ice packs to the neck, to the groin, up under the arms. Any part where those arteries are going to be flowing, we can start to cool that blood down a little bit by putting ice packs in some of those areas. You also have a lot of heat loss through your head, so pouring some cool water on your head, or putting a cold rag, a wet rag that's been dipped in cold water on your head, that can help draw some of that heat out as well and be able to bring your body temperature back down. All right, so let's jump into heat stroke. So heat stroke is definitely the worst of these three illnesses we're talking about. And a heat stroke is not a stroke like a normal stroke where we have some ischemia in one part of the brain, somebody's not able to move one side, facial droop. A lot of times in heat stroke, we will actually have a person that's completely unresponsive or is really just not acting right. So 2 criteria to be able to call this heat stroke. 1, it either has to be a core temperature of 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, or the person has to have altered mental status from the heat. So if someone is now confused and is not able to think properly, they don't know exactly where they are, they're not making a lot of sense, they might start appearing drunk or impaired. If that is due to the heat illness, now we can start calling that heat stroke. And now we really need to start working on cooling these patients down quickly because their body's basically cooking on the inside, and we've got to cool that down to prevent any permanent damage to their brain, any permanent damage to the body. These patients need to get cooled down quickly. Before we get into the treatment for heat stroke, let's talk for a minute about the 2 different types of heat stroke that we have. We have a classic heat stroke and we have an exertional heat stroke. The classic is just when somebody's core temperature starts rising and they cannot get rid of that heat fast enough. An exertional heat stroke is somewhat the same thing, but it's because of intense exercise, and that is usually in the heat, but now they're exercising, so they are producing a lot of extra heat on top of the hot environment that they're already in. Now our body, whenever we exercise, we work hard, we give off heat. That's normal. But our body has ways of getting rid of that heat. 1, it will circulate that through the blood. It's kind of like a radiator in a car where we're circulating that heat out to the periphery. We start opening up the blood vessels in our arms. It's called vasodilation. And now we've increased the surface area on those vessels that are down in our periphery. So our legs, arms, anything near the surface of the skin. Those vessels dilate, and now we have more blood that's flowing near the surface to be able to expel that heat. That's one reason why if you go from a cold environment out to a hot environment and now you're working out and you're trying to release that heat, you can get a little bit dizzy and you can start to feel like you're going to pass out. You may even pass out because you quickly have that body is opening up those vessels and opening up that container. Your blood pressure may drop due to that, and you can start to have some syncopal episodes from that. So that's one thing to watch out for. Your body is naturally responding to the heat, but now you may have a lower blood pressure from the body trying to open up these vessels to get rid of the massive amount of heat that your body is producing. Again, your body will adapt to this heat over time. So if you are outside working construction in the heat all day, your body adapts to this on a regular basis. Same thing with athletes. Athletes that are training in these environments, their body builds up resistance and they are a lot better suited to be in those environments exercising. But if you take somebody from a cold climate or somebody that's not used to being in the heat and now they're exerting themselves and working out in the heat, that's going to be one of those times where we may see this a lot more commonly. So if your body's already acclimated to this heat and to this exercise, this heat stroke is not going to be near as common. Another way that our body works on getting rid of heat is through sweating. So we have an evaporative process of having sweat on our body, and it evaporates to the atmosphere, and with that it pulls heat out of our body and releases that into the surrounding around us. Now if we have high humidity outside, we're going to have difficulty with our body actually releasing that sweat into that humidity. So that's why people say it's a dry heat. Well, that's because their sweat is actually evaporating faster and pulling some of that heat out. As we have a very humid environment like we do here in Middle Tennessee, our sweat does not evaporate as quickly. It lingers with us, and so we don't have as much of that evaporative cooling, and so we're not able to give off or get rid of that heat that's in our body quite as fast. All right, so we have someone with exertional heat stroke. They have been exercising and producing heat internally. It's hot outside. They cannot get rid of the heat inside their body fast enough to keep up with the demands and the heat that they are actually producing by doing this exercise. Their core temperature elevates over 104 degrees Fahrenheit. They start to get altered mental, and then maybe eventually they will even go completely unresponsive. They may be laying on the ground and they are in desperate need of some immediate emergency care. So what are we going to do for these patients? Well, the first thing we really need to do with these patients after we have determined that yes, this is related to the heat and it's not because of blood loss or some other trauma or they hit their head, but if we know this is related to the heat, we can start cooling them immediately. We're not going to want to spend a ton of time doing crazy assessments and everything. We need to get their core temperature down. That is the main thing for them. So how are we going to bring their core temperature down? Well, if we start cooling the extremities, we're going to shrink those blood vessels down. We're going to restrict blood flow, and then we're not going to have good circulation to be able to circulate that blood and continue to give off that heat. So pouring cold water or putting ice all over the arms by itself is not the best route to go. So a lot of people say you could take ice packs and you stick it in the neck, the groin, armpit, those areas. And then if you have a medic on scene, you can start an IV and give some cold fluids as well to circulate through the body. Well, one of the problems with ice packs is ice packs don't stay cold for very long. And it's not a lot of surface area when we're talking about how much surface area there is on a body. So if we just throw ice packs in those areas, we're not going to pull enough heat out fast enough to bring this core temperature down to where it needs to be. So the best way that we can bring this body temperature down in an efficient manner is to submerge the core of the body down in some cold water. Ice water, cold creek water, something to be able to pull that heat out of the body. If you have a creek nearby, drag this patient down into the creek, keep their head above water obviously, but let their body sit down in that cool creek water and keep them there until that body temperature comes back down to a normal level. A normal core temperature that we're looking at to bring this patient down to make sure that we don't go too far the other way and actually give them hypothermia, that'd be about 101 to 102 Fahrenheit. That's the temperature we're aiming for to make sure that we don't go too far the other way and make them too cold. Now, when I'm talking about a core temperature, typically that is a rectal temperature. That's about the only way you're going to get a true core temperature. So this may not be something that you're doing yourself before professional services get there or before they get to a hospital. You may not have the tools to do this, but just understand when we're talking core temperature, that's what we're talking about. If you take a temperature under the arm or on the forehead, that's not going to be as accurate as a true core temperature. All right. Let's say that this same scenario happened, but we're not near a creek. Let's say this happened while we are out at a gathering with friends and family, or we're at a sporting event, or let's say that we are running some drills with our friends at the range and something happens. So we have someone that we have to cool down. We can use what's called the taco method. This is the tarp-assisted cooling with oscillation. Now what this is we use a tarp, we lay it out. We put our patient in the middle of the tarp and we roll the sides of the tarp up around the patient. We hold the sides of the tarp up around the patient to make a little bit of a bowl for this patient. And now we can use any coolers of ice and water that we have, throw that in there with the patient, again, making sure to keep their head above water. And then we will use this bowl that we've made now to help hold that water around the patient's core to try to bring that temperature down. The last part of the taco is the oscillation. In order to speed this process up, the more that we can move this cold water around the body and to be able to pull that heat off the body, the faster we can cool this patient down. So now as we slosh this water back and forth over the patient, that will start to cool them down quickly. After you've cooled that patient down, now is the time to back up and do a full assessment. Airway, breathing, circulation, go into a full head to toe assessment. Let's get blood pressure. Let's do a full set of vitals, blood pressure, heart rate, respiratory rate. Let's look at pupils. Let's see if they're sluggish. Let's do a full trauma assessment to make sure that there's not another secondary injury that we're missing second to this heat injury that we've already treated. All right, let's do a quick recap. So we have 3 types of heat-related emergencies. We have heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. Heat stroke is obviously the worst of these, and that is when our core temperature is either at 104 Fahrenheit or we have heat-related illness that has now led to altered mental status. At that point, we can call that heat stroke, and we need to start cooling this patient as fast as possible. Submerge the core in cold water or ice water. Use the taco method if you don't have a basin or a creek nearby that you can put this patient in. Get that core temperature down, and then do a full assessment on this patient. Remember that prevention is much easier than treatment here. So if we can make sure that we're properly hydrated, that we have good intake of electrolytes, and that we are monitoring our signs and symptoms and getting out of the heat if we start having some of these symptoms like dizziness, lethargy, and some of these signs of heat exhaustion, maybe even heat cramps. We start assessing and taking care of that now before it progresses all the way to a heat stroke. So let's make sure we're good on prevention, watch over one another out there in this crazy heat, and as always, stay vigilant and stay safe.
Heat stress policy, manager and supervisor responsibilities, training and education. Ensure all supervisors are trained in the heat stress policy and aware of signs and symptoms of heat stress disorders. Verify employees are trained and maintain training records. Conduct regular follow-ups and training sessions to educate employees on recognizing heat stress symptoms and preventive measures. Monitoring and communication. Regularly check the temperature and humidex and inform employees about current conditions and any necessary adjustments. Communicate conditions to supervisors and employees, and adjust work schedules accordingly. Work schedule management. Modify work schedules to avoid heavy tasks during peak heat times, scheduling more demanding tasks for cooler parts of the day. Gradually acclimate new or returning employees to the working environment. Ensure employees working in isolation have communication means, and set check-in timelines. Provision of water and equipment. Ensure that all employees have access to an adequate supply of drinking water throughout the workday. Provide personal protective equipment, sunscreen, and drinking water. Ensure employees have appropriate gear before working outside. Ensure employees have access to and use appropriate sun protection, such as sunscreen, hats, and protective clothing. Emergency response. Respond to heat stress incidents by providing first aid, calling for medical help if needed, and conducting investigations with the Joint Health and Safety Committee. Notify appropriate authorities if medical attention is required. Health and safety compliance. Make necessary accommodations for employees with medical conditions that affect their ability to work in hot conditions. Adjust assignments as needed and ensure employees can perform their tasks safely and effectively. Ensure that first aid measures are in place and that trained personnel are available to respond to any heat-related illnesses. Respond to heat stress incidents by providing first aid, calling for medical help if needed, and conducting investigations with the Joint Health and Safety Committee. Notify appropriate authorities if medical attention is required. TLTC alcohol policy. Members and guests are encouraged to enjoy the club's social facilities responsibly, adhering to applicable laws and club regulations regarding alcohol consumption. Alcohol must be consumed within licensed areas and not taken elsewhere. Bringing outside alcohol is prohibited, except under the club's corkage policy. Individuals under 19 cannot possess or consume alcohol on club premises. Club employees must verify the age of those purchasing alcohol and report any attempts to bypass this rule. Visibly intoxicated individuals will be refused service, and efforts will be made to prevent them from driving. Any misconduct related to alcohol, such as attempting to obtain service after being refused or providing alcohol to underage or intoxicated individuals, must be reported to the manager for further action. Manager's responsibilities. Training. Ensure employees are trained to verify age and recognize intoxication. Enforcement. Monitor and enforce alcohol consumption within licensed areas. Compliance. Ensure compliance with the club's corkage policy. Age verification. Confirm identification for age verification when necessary. Service refusal. Support employees in refusing service to intoxicated individuals. Transportation. Offer alternatives to driving for intoxicated individuals. Incident reporting. Report any misconduct to the general manager. Disciplinary action. Take appropriate disciplinary action for violations of the policy. Emergency response plan. Evacuation. When fire, gas leak, hazardous material spill. Action. Exit the building immediately using the nearest safe exit. Do not use elevators. Assemble at the designated meeting point. Lockdown. When active shooter, violent intruder. Action. Lock doors, turn off lights, stay quiet, hide out of sight. Do not leave until authorities give the all clear. Shelter in place. When tornado, severe weather, chemical hazard. Action. Stay indoors, move to an interior room away from windows. Seal the room if necessary. Remain until the threat passes or further instructions are provided. General emergency procedures. The immediate response to any emergency will determine how that emergency is handled. The 6 important points to remember are: look after yourself first. Look after other persons next. Assess the emergency and remember details. Notify someone. Include the nature of the emergency, the location, your name, and the telephone number where you can be reached. Assist to the degree that you have been trained. Record details. Never risk your own safety or the safety of others trying to save the day. In case of an emergency, please follow the instructions of the emergency responders, incident commander, or crisis response team. When a fire alarm sounds, you'll be informed within a few minutes whether it's a false alarm or if evacuation is required. If you don't hear any instructions within a few minutes, or if you feel it's not safe to stay where you are, don't wait. Evacuate as soon as you can. If evacuation is necessary, head to the emergency evacuation area, which is the Green Pea parking lot on Price Street. For reception and office workers, shut down computers. Take the court booking sheet and guest book with you. Close but leave office doors and windows unlocked, only if it's safe to do so. For kitchen, maintenance, and locker room workers, shut off gas, water, and electricity. Again, only if it's safe to do so. For everyone, grab your personal belongings. Don't forget things like prescription medications, keys, purse, and glasses, since it may be hours before we're allowed back inside the building. Stay safe and take care of what you can, but your safety always comes first. Do not take any food, drinks, which could create a hazard in the emergency exits. On your way to the exit, direct employees, members, and guests to safety. Use a loud, calm, in-control voice to direct people to the nearest exit or other safe location. Ask for assistance from nearby people if possible. Provide assistance to people with a disability and any person who falls or trips. Follow the emergency fire plan to get those with a disability to safety. Move any objects blocking an emergency exit. Do not use elevators. Instead, use stairwells to reach ground level. Exit the building and proceed directly to the designated safe emergency exit as indicated in the fire evacuation plan, and then to the designated emergency evacuation area as indicated by the incident commander, such as Green Pea parking on Price Street. Do not re-enter the building or work area until instructed to do so by the incident commander or crisis response team. Medical procedures. Ensure your safety and the safety of other people first. If necessary, remove people from the immediate area. Assess the scene for immediate hazards and determine the number of victims and type, severity of injuries, illness. Call 911 and contact the incident commander, reception, or designee for assistance. Assist the victim to the degree that you have been trained. Remember to identify yourself and your first aid qualifications. Stay with victim and protect him/her by you removing immediate hazards, you giving first aid, you staying with the victim until assistance arrives, you asking the victim to give you his/her name and addresses if possible, you determining if possible the nature of the illness from the victim, what medication, if any, has been taken or is needed, and the doctor and hospital of the victims. You assisting in completing an accident incident report form. Lockdown procedures. Secure the area, move to safety. Go to the nearest safe room with as many people as possible. Lock and barricade. Secure all doors. Minimize lighting. Turn off lights or maintain minimal lighting. Cover windows, use blinds, curtains, and other. Stay safe. Keep back. Stay away from windows and doors. Take cover. Lie flat on the floor or hide behind something solid. Limit cell phone use. Only use cell phones to report injuries or communicate about the incident. Keep phones off or on vibrate. Use texting when possible. Remain calm and quiet. Stay calm and maintain silence. Wait for authorities. Stay put. Remain in the room until police arrive. Be prepared to stay for several hours if necessary. Hazardous materials. Any spilled substance left uncleaned can become hazardous due to slips and falls. If you encounter a spilled, non-hazardous substance, either clean it up immediately if safe to do so. Always use the personal protective equipment (PPE) recommended in Section 8 of the Chemicals Safety Data Sheet and/or guard the area and obtain assistance. Suspicious package. A suspicious package can be dangerous, disruptive, and could pose a safety threat to the TLTC employees, members, and guests. It could be delivered at any time to anyone. If a suspicious package is discovered while handling, avoid dropping, throwing, or any other abrupt movement, and gently set the package down in a secluded area. Notify the incident commander or crisis response team. Utility outage. If power is lost in your work area, immediately try to notify the incident commander, crisis response team, or reception and your manager. Ensure your safety and the safety of other occupants and guests first. Assess the scene, looking for injuries, degree of outage, and other concerns. Turn off computer equipment and any other electrical equipment in your area. When power is restored, there may be a surge causing damage to electrical and computer equipment. Workplace violence. Under very violent conditions, call 911 immediately. If you feel that a situation is about to become violent, call 911 immediately. Do not place yourself at risk or jeopardize anyone's safety when dealing with any perceived or real situation of violence. Report promptly to the incident commander, reception and/or designee all threats or incidents of workplace violence, whether they are directed at the employee or at the member visitor of the club. Gas leak. Immediately call the fire department and gas company and have the gas supply shut off. Don't use the elevators. Cut power to building, as even the smallest spark from a ringing telephone could cause an explosion. Open all doors and windows to thin out the concentration of gas and release pressure should there be an explosion. Emergency procedures for bubble. The bubble will take at least 1 hour to come down if damage is contained. Alarm will sound to indicate a problem with pressure. If damage is not contained, it will come down in half an hour, and the only escape will be through emergency doors. Be careful when the bubble comes down in a high wind because of the whiplash effect. Water supply interruption. If you become aware of a water supply interruption, immediately call the incident commander or crisis response team and your direct manager. Discontinue service of equipment with waterline connections, such as post-mix beverage machines, spray misters, coffee or tea urns, ice machines, glass washers, dishwashers, etc. Use hand sanitizers or adequate hand washing facilities before contacting ready-to-eat food with bare hands. Use washrooms with adequate hand washing facilities only. Evacuation may be needed. Wait for instructions. After water service has been restored, flush pipes, faucets, and equipment with water connections. Intruder, suspicious person. Do not physically confront the person and do not block the person's access to an exit. If you believe the suspicious person is a threat and/or an emergency, call 911. Otherwise, call the incident commander or crisis response team and your direct manager. Try to remain as calm as possible. Identify which direction a person is going and report your observations to the incident commander. If it is safe to do so, take a photo of the person with your smartphone.
Addressing and preventing harassment in the workplace. Introduction to Workplace Anti-Harassment Policy. Welcome to our session on understanding and upholding the Toronto Lawn Tennis Club's commitment to a harassment-free workplace. Today, we will journey through what it means to foster a safe, productive, and healthy environment where mutual respect is the foundation. What is harassment? At TLTC, harassment is viewed seriously and encompasses any unwelcome conduct that is known or should reasonably be known to be unwelcome. This includes sexual harassment, such as unwanted sexual advances; personal harassment, which might manifest as disrespectful or offensive behavior; and racial or ethnic harassment, involving derogatory comments or jokes about a person's racial or ethnic background. Commitment to action. We guarantee that every report of harassment will be taken seriously. Upon receiving a report, we are committed to conducting a thorough investigation to ascertain the facts and ensure that appropriate measures are taken. This commitment is a cornerstone of our efforts to maintain a safe and welcoming environment for everyone at the club. Zero tolerance policy. At the Toronto Lawn Tennis Club, we uphold a zero tolerance policy towards any form of harassment, whether it involves employees or members. Harassment, in any guise, disrupts the fabric of respect and safety we strive to maintain in our workplace. Roles everyone plays. Everyone at TLTC plays a pivotal role. As employees, you are the eyes and ears of our community. Your proactive actions, whether by supporting a colleague or reporting an incident, contribute immensely to maintaining our standards. Managers carry the legal and ethical responsibility to act against harassment. Ignorance is not bliss, it's a liability. Addressing potential problems before they escalate is crucial. How to report harassment. If you find yourself facing harassment, you have options. Informally, you might choose to directly confront the respondent or discuss the matter with a supervisor. This step often resolves issues quickly and effectively without further escalation. Formally, if the situation persists or is of a severe nature, completing a workplace violence and harassment incident report form is the way forward. The form can be found in the staff room, online, and in the HR office. This triggers a thorough investigation, ensuring all voices are heard and the appropriate actions are taken. Investigation procedures. Once a report is made, we follow a thorough investigation process. This includes interviewing the complainant, witnesses, and the respondent, and gathering any additional evidence. When necessary, a third-party investigator may be involved. Our goal is to handle every case with fairness and confidentiality. The principle of see something, say something. In our community, silence can be interpreted as acceptance. If you witness harassment, speak up. It's everyone's duty to ensure a safe and respectful work environment. By doing so, you help uphold the dignity and worth of every individual here. Maintaining a positive work environment. Our collective efforts create the safe haven that is TLTC. We trust that each of you will actively participate in eliminating harassment from our workplace. Remember, your actions or inactions have implications. Creating and maintaining a harassment-free environment isn't just good practice, it's a mandate. Consequences of harassment. Imagine the impact of harassment on the workplace. Substantiated complaints lead to progressive disciplinary actions, up to suspension or termination of employment. If the respondent is a member or guest of the club, the GM, assistant GM, and board leadership may be involved. Disciplinary measures applied to them will also follow a progressive disciplinary process up to suspension or expulsion. Examples of workplace harassment. Unwelcome sexual advances or comments. Inappropriate touching or physical contact. Sharing sexually explicit materials. Sexual jokes or remarks. Racist jokes or remarks. Displaying offensive material. Insulting gestures or jokes based on race or ethnicity. Refusing to work with someone based on ethnicity. Derogatory comments about age. Excluding someone from opportunities due to age. Offensive remarks about gender identity. Intentional misgendering. Jokes or slurs about sexual orientation. Spreading malicious rumors or gossip. Intimidation or threats. Undermining someone's work or reputation. Understanding policy on false complaints. It's important to note that while we encourage reporting, the integrity of our complaints process is paramount. Falsely accusing someone of harassment not only undermines our trust system, but also leads to disciplinary actions, potentially as severe as termination. Frequently asked questions. Question: what happens to people who complain of harassment just to retaliate against someone they don't like? Answer: this is rare and usually occurs when employees aren't informed about the definitions of harassment. The complaint and investigation procedure discourages frivolous complaints, which can result in disciplinary action. Question: what protection is there for me if I am falsely accused of harassment? My career and reputation could be ruined. Answer: investigations are confidential and impartial. If a complaint lacks merit, it is documented as such. Every complaint is thoroughly investigated and substantiated based on available evidence. Retaliation against any employee as a result of a complaint is not tolerated. Question: is a picture of a nude woman or man in my locker or desk considered sexual harassment? Answer: yes, such pictures are inappropriate in the workplace. They can offend or humiliate others and reflect poorly on the company image. Question: How can the investigation be kept confidential if everyone knows what is going on? Answer: confidentiality is a major concern. Investigators discuss the complaint only with those who might have knowledge of the situation. The aim is to protect the reputations of all involved. Question: will the person who harassed me go to jail? Answer: harassment is considered a discriminatory employment practice, not a criminal offense. However, sexual assault is a criminal action and can lead to criminal charges. Question: what about an employee who wears revealing or provocative clothing? Aren't they asking for it? Answer: no one should be subjected to harassment under any circumstances. Harassment is often about power, not sexuality. Clothing choices do not justify harassment. Question: my coworker harassed me once, and I told them to stop. They haven't done it again. Is this harassment? Answer: if the behavior has stopped, consider the incident over. If it starts again, you can pursue a complaint. Question: if someone else is being harassed, do I have to get involved as a witness? Answer: you cannot be compelled to get involved, but we trust all employees will help eliminate harassment. A positive workplace benefits everyone, and proactive involvement is encouraged. Question: how do you decide if it's harassment if there were no witnesses, and it's just one person's word against another? Answer: harassers often repeat their actions with others. Investigations can include former employees and coworkers. Witnesses are not always required to establish what occurred. As we conclude, remember that at TLTC, we are committed to fostering a respectful and safe workplace. By working together, we can eliminate harassment and ensure that everyone feels valued and secure.
Supervisor responsibilities for employee protection. General duty. Take precautions. Supervisors must take every reasonable precaution to protect employees. Workplace safety. Inform workers, communicate hazards and dangers, and demonstrate safe working practices. Ensure compliance. Make sure workers follow laws, health and safety policies and procedures. Use protective equipment. Ensure workers wear and use the correct protective gear. Prevent injuries. Do everything reasonable to prevent workers from getting hurt or sick. Employee rights. Respect right to refuse. Employees can refuse unsafe work if they believe it is dangerous for them or others. Equipment safety. Instruction on equipment. Train employees on the safe operation of equipment. Act on reports. Immediately address any reported workplace hazards, equipment issues, harassment, or violence. Incident reporting. Report injuries. Report any workplace injuries to HR and the H&S committee chair immediately. Health and safety policies. Employees' responsibilities. Report hazards and dangers in the workplace to the supervisor right away. Follow the law and the workplace health and safety policies and procedures. Wear and use the right protective equipment. Operate equipment and machinery in a safe way. Report any workplace injuries to the supervisor right away. If employees do not follow these instructions, disciplinary actions may follow. Right to refuse unsafe work. In Ontario, employees have the legal right to refuse work if they believe it poses a danger to themselves or others. This right is protected under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. When an employee identifies unsafe work conditions, they must immediately inform their supervisor. The supervisor is then required to investigate the concern alongside the employee and a health and safety representative. If the issue is resolved through this initial investigation, the employee can resume work safely. However, if the concern remains unresolved, the Ministry of Labour will be contacted to conduct a further investigation. Employees are safeguarded from any form of reprisal for exercising their right to refuse unsafe work, ensuring their safety and well-being are prioritized in the workplace.
Every employee on site also has a responsibility to keep themselves safe by following all safety rules and by using common sense. Without employee cooperation, the guidelines are useless and won't do anything. The responsibilities for employees fall into 3 sections: be familiar with the rules, follow the rules, and report to your supervisors. The best examples of safe workplaces are when employers and employees work together and share the responsibilities of staying safe. So today, we are going to talk about what you as an employee should be doing to stay safe on the job. Employers have many responsibilities under the law that requires them to keep their employees safe and healthy on the job. There are written safety programs, as well as safe equipment and training that each employer must provide. In general, the employer must provide their employees with a safe and healthy workplace, but safety is not just the employer's responsibility. As we continue today, you'll learn what you must do to be responsible for your safety. The first thing an employee should do when starting a new job or a new site is get familiar with the new safety rules they need to follow. They are part of your job and should be part of work every day. Not following them could result in an injury or disciplinary action. The great majority of safety rules are either common knowledge or common sense. So remember the rules, but also use your head, stay focused, and pay attention to your surroundings.
TLTC Right to Disconnect Policy. The TLTC Right to Disconnect policy ensures employees maintain a work-life balance, promoting mental health and preventing workplace stress and violence. Employees are encouraged to disconnect from work-related communications outside their scheduled hours, except in emergencies. This policy applies to all employees, whether working on-site or remotely, and emphasizes the importance of adhering to set working hours and respecting colleagues' off-duty time. Managers' responsibilities. Policy communication. Provide the policy to all employees within 30 days of its effective date and any changes within 30 days. Work schedule. Inform employees in advance about any required work outside regular hours and allow for schedule adjustments. Emergency handling. Ensure employees are available for critical emergencies only, exhausting other resources first. Workload management. Assist employees in managing workloads to prevent excess hours and stress. Support. Provide support to employees with concerns about mental health and work disconnection. Respect off-duty time. Do not expect responses from employees during their off-duty hours, except in emergencies. Managers' responsibilities. As a manager, you are expected to make sure that your employees follow all TLTC policies and procedures. If your employees violate any club's policy, it is your responsibility to address these issues with the employee in a timely manner. If the policy violation continues, it is your responsibility to report it to the HR department in a timely manner. Keep record of any such incidents and all your conversations and efforts to deal with any policy violations. Any verbal warnings should also be recorded. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time and participation in today's information session. Your commitment is invaluable to the success of our team and the organization. Let's continue to lead with purpose, foster growth, and create a positive impact together. If you have any questions or need further support, don't hesitate to reach out to your HR team.